Good evening, everyone. My name is Verna Vazquez, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to be here. Hopefully, we won't have any connection issues or anything, and everything will go smoothly. However, I would like to start the presentation with this picture. I'm pretty sure, like everyone here, there knows or have met someone in this situation. I've been working as a music teacher for the early childhood for over 9 years now. And in my experience, there was no mom that wouldn't look like this in some way or describe herself like this. And according to sociologists, it's because modern society demands more of women at the moment of becoming mothers. And they have to fulfill expectations in different roles, such as the role of professionals, the role of mothers, wives, parents, friends, sisters. This can cause a constant psychological sense of distress, which also can cause role strain or role conflict. Well, the main issue of this is that mother's sense of well-being might be in danger, putting at risk the nurture and the coverage of infants' needs itself. So for explaining this in more depth, this presentation will cover the theoretical framework of the project that was part of my MA dissertation, its general methodology and procedure, and as well as general results of the project. And I will continue also with the overview of my PhD project proposal. The general background covers two main topics, with what is maternal bond and why it's so important for infants' early experiences, but also the previous research about mothers, babies, and music. Well, maternal bonding is also known as maternal attachment, and according to the founder of attachment theory, John Bowlby, he says a secure attachment between mothers and babies is developed through the consistent proximity and care over time, fostering an emotional tie characterized by a powerful emotional relationship. However, how this works? Well, it works through the instinct of maternal care, which depends on the mother's emotional state. It's the mother that is able to cover the infant's needs, which impacts directly on the infant's development. And for example, it impacts in the development of emotional tools, the brain structure of the infant, and social competence. When infants start to develop, this at the same time changes the way the mothers cover their infant's needs over the early childhood period. Moreover, the infant's development, but specifically the emotional regulation tools, depend on positive and negative early experiences, which take place through synchronous mother-infant interactions, which also at the same time depends on the mother emotional state and the effective maternal care. That is why attachment is related and gives so much importance to the caregiver's emotional state, and this can be categorized by behaviors, which can be secure, avoidant, ambivalent, and disorganized. And this impacts directly to the infant's development. But however, what music research can say about all this? Well, according to the previous research, the expressiveness of maternal singing and maternal speech is the way how mothers communicate and express affection, sensitivity, and positive emotions to their infant, and respond to a basic biological foundation of motherhood. This suggests that the expressiveness of maternal vocalizations is affected by the quality of maternal attachment, and reveal its importance of accomplishing an effective and emotional communication. Moreover, previous research has also studied the characteristics of this expressiveness that we're talking about, suggesting that the expressiveness is a combination of rising pitch contours, music-like vocal gestures, patterns in rhythm and tempo, and the facial gestures. This statement is the basis of infants' recognition and preference of their own mother's voice from other female voices, enhancing infants' attention and underlining infants' emotional regulation. So if we combine these two topics, where mother's emotional state is essential for covering infants' needs and develop a secure attachment and therefore will be shown in the vocalization towards their infant, allowing an effective and positive communication, then the question is like why research has been unsuccessful on addressing the mother's everyday life and how motherhood can be a source of stress or can affect the way mothers really bond with their infant. Well, therefore, this project aimed to explore interactions from mother to infant, not from infant to mother, and explore the uses of music of mother's everyday life by taking care of the influence of the music emotional responses during mother-infant interactions, but specifically the influence of mother self-selected music. And considering all this, well, our main question was, can mother self-selected music facilitate maternal bonding during everyday life interactions? Well, for answering this question, our project considered, first of all, the analysis and exploration of human interactions, considering a naturalistic setting by carrying out a 2-week quasi-experimental trial with a mixed subject design and with a quantitative and qualitative approaches. Now, I would like to continue with the methods by describing first the participants and the data collection. We will begin with the participants, Their general characteristics were mothers from Sheffield area in the UK, with their babies between 4 and 8 months old, with no mental or congenital disorders. Well, due to time constraints, because we needed to do all the project in 3 months, so we had the time constraint. So we were able only to recruit 8 mothers with their babies through the Facebook group called Sheffield Slings. We offer a £20 Amazon voucher for their participation, and all of them had higher education and were married or in a civil partnership. 75% were employed, 50% were working part-time, and only 25% had maternity leave during the trial. The methods and data collection consisted, first of all, of an online background questionnaire, where general background information, the general medical information, and their general uses of music were included. Here, there is the example of how we retrieve information from their general uses of music in the questionnaire. And this questionnaire served to recruit the potential participants and the ones willing to participate on the 2-week trial. Also, we took 2 measurement scales, which were included the parental stress scale and the maternal postnatal attachment scale. Also, participants needed to fill in 2 self-reported diaries, the recording of 2 interaction videos of 30 minutes each in a naturalistic setting, where all the participants chose their own homes for recording the videos. And we finalized the trial with a follow-up interview to cover participants' general experiences during the trial and, of course, to retrieve first-hand information. Well, the procedure was as follows. We began with the background questionnaire after selecting the participants, and we measured the first time the parental stress and maternal attachment. The first week of the trial considered the control condition, which was based on mother's everyday life, and they needed to fill in the first diary and include their general routine, their general emotional states, and anything they wanted to share. And after the first week, we recorded the first interaction video, which was a regular mother-infant interaction at home, and we took measurements for the second time. For the second week, participants were allocated into one of the condition groups, which was their singing or listening to music, and it was based on the regular uses of music retrieved from the background questionnaire. And we encouraged them to use their own selection of music or meaningful music with their interactions with their infants. During this week, they also needed to fill in a second diary, including the description of the selected music, the purpose, the effect of the music, and the infant's behavior towards it. The trial finalized with taking the measurements for the third time and the recording of the interaction video, and including the condition already, and a follow-up interview. Analysis of the data consider the quantitative and qualitative approaches. The quantitative analysis was made with the software SPSS version 24 for Mac and took into account the scores of parental stress and maternal attachment. However, from the MPAS, we also consider the 3 subscales in which the total score is divided, which are the quality of attachment, the absence of hostility, and pleasure of interaction. For the analysis, we calculated the difference between the third measurement and the sum of the first two, since there was no condition during the first 2 measurements. And furthermore, we considered the interaction videos. These were edited into a 5 seconds time base and separated into 15 seconds of interaction episodes. We scored 3 codes, which were face-to-face interactions and 2 3-step interactions. The 3-step A considered a mother's response, followed by an infant's response, and finalizing with a vocalization from the mother. And the 3-step B considered an infant's vocalization, followed by a mother's response, and finalizing with an infant's response. Each code received a score where 1 was the minimum value, showing synchronous and concurrences, expression of anger, sadness, fussiness, or intrusive or disinterested behavior, and 5 being the maximum score, where there was a high synchrony during the interaction, smiling expressions combined with synchronous body movements or vocalizations. And here we also calculated the difference between the first interaction videos and the second ones. So I would like to show you, this is an example of how we edited the videos in order to code and give a score to each of the codes. So this was just one angle where it was taking mostly the infant's face. And it's showing like how they are looking to each other, if there was a response or not. So this is how, in order to see each of the codes, we need to edit it like in a very, very slow motion video. Well, to compare the difference between the condition groups under the variables, a total of 8 one-way ANOVAs were conducted in order to prevent type 1 error by doing multiple t-tests, in which there was a significant difference mean in parental stress and face-to-face interactions. The significant scores were tested in further depth by carrying out independent sample t-tests and pair sample t-tests to determine whether there was a statistical significant mean difference between the parental stress and the face-to-face interactions under the condition groups and between week 1 and week 2 respectively. We found that parental stress was higher in the listening group, showing a minus 3.50% more than the singing group. And the quality of face-to-face interactions was 0.78% higher on the listening group than in the singing group. And also we have found, which was like kind of unexpected, but we found that participants experienced 25% less stress in week 2 than in week 1, suggesting that actually self-selected music from the mothers helped to reduce parental stress. For the qualitative analysis, we used the in vivo version 12 software for Mac by using thematic coding and analyzing the data with IPA. And well, we title our coding as Mothers Using Music in Everyday Life, and consider for analysis both diaries and the follow-up interview. The codes included 2 main topics: the motherhood in everyday life, which included motherhood experiences, maternal bonding, and mother's coping strategies. And we also included a second topic that was music in everyday life, which included the purpose of maternal singing, of listening to music, and the selections of music. However, for the second diary and the follow-up interview, we included also the code of the condition effect, And only for the follow-up interview, we added also the code of research experiences and how mothers use music streaming services. Well, the main result of the qualitative analysis were that mothers consider music as an effective and commonly used tool for coping during stressful situations, regardless if they were by themselves or with their interactions with their infant. Almost 60% of the mothers stated that using their own selection of music helped them to feel like a woman one more time, sharing that since they become mothers, they have put aside personal needs, forgetting something as basic and important as their music preference. They pointed that an evidence of that is how their playlist on Spotify or YouTube changed radically since they had their baby, having only infant songs and have titles such as bath time, go to sleep, or breakfast time. And the most interesting is that mothers stated to be surprised to see how their own infant responded so positive to their own music, making them feel more connected during their interactions, and mostly during intimate interactions such as breastfeeding or sleeping time. Well, however, what we can suggest with all these findings? Well, considering two existing music theories, such as the reciprocal feedback model from Hargreaves, saying that music responses depend on three elements: the listener, which in this case are the mother and the baby, the music itself being the mother's self-selected music, and the context being an environment such as a park, home, car, but also the mother-infant interaction itself. And also, if we consider that the communicative musicality theory of Trevart and Malloch, saying that musical parameters of pulse, quality, and narrative allow to communicate companionship to infants by sharing a meaningful emotional response. Now, I would like to stop here a little bit because when we talk about the terms of music and musicality during mother-infant interactions, we talk about more the fact of an innate human ability of making, appreciating, or producing music. And furthermore, this is a way to express the human desire of communicating and developing cultural cues throughout movement, memory, or synchrony with others. So, on one hand, bringing together all these two theories and our findings, we suggest that the mother's music response is communicated through musical parameters of pulse, quality, and narrative, which impacts directly to the infant's music response, which at the same time communicate its response with musical parameters, affecting one more time the mother's musical response. And all this is affected by the music and the context. But on the other hand, we also suggest that it is a mother's music response that promotes a sense of well-being, meaning that promotes a mother's well-being, which fosters a better quality mother-infant interaction, facilitating the development of a secure maternal bonding and the infant's positive experiences, which impacts directly to the infant's general and future development and the future social behaviors. Then, well, what would be our next step? Well, we know this works in mother-infant interactions. However, infants don't interact only with the mother. So our next step will be to explore how this happens in a family context. Well, family interactions are the basis of family bonding and is developed by a combination of nonverbal communication cues, the affective behavioral patterns, and cultural and individual factors of each of the members. And well, even if we will wish that every man and woman will be looking like this when they become parents, well, the reality might be a little bit different. And that is why developmental and evolutional psychology has paid attention into one of the most common transitions in life, but also considered as one of the most stressful one, that is the transition into parenthood. This transition is lived differently by each individual and is a transition into a parental role that will impact the behavioral changes needed for fulfilling this role itself. and also for being able to cover the infant's needs. This transition is important due to the adaptation of people's personal lives, meaning something as simple as a woman has to become a mother and a man has to become a father. But also it's complex due to the changes in the family dynamics and interactions, meaning that the family of two, a dyadic interaction of husband-wife, will become now a triad. But also changes regarding its social context, for example, with extended family, with friends, with work. So therefore, this project aims to explore if music can foster positive and effective relationships between parents and infants, which uses of music seem to work best, what are the bases of the development of positive and affection interactions, and yet again, the main question being if can parent self-selected music facilitate early family bonding. And here is where maybe I will repeat a little bit myself, but based on our MA project, the design is based again on exploring human interactions in a realistic setting, but this time with a 6-week quasi-experimental trial with a mixed subject design, considering quantitative and qualitative approaches, but adding a cross-cultural approach by including samples from Austrian and Mexican families. Participants also and the data collection may resemble a little bit as the MA project. However, I will start with the participants that this time will be first-time families, meaning parents having their first child, and their babies between 0 to 12 months old with no mental or congenital disorders. Participants for both samples will be recruited through non-profit organizations working with this population already, and through the network built with the GCRF project from previous jobs and professional experience. And it will be offered to the participants of both samples workshops about positive parental practices, also psychotherapy sessions, either individual or as a couples therapy, and also for the Austrian sample will be offered a DM gift cards, and for the Mexican sample, a gift card from also pharmacy that it's very similar to DM. For the data collection, we are considering also a background questionnaire, including the general information, medical information and uses of music, but also the Big 5 inventory for personality traits. We are taking just one time the personality traits since we are not expecting any changes on personality over the trial. So that will be included only on the background questionnaire. But also we will include self-reported diaries according to the condition, the measurement scales from which we will measure parental stress, again, maternal or paternal attachment scale, marital satisfaction, conflict management strategies, and emotional regulation strategies, followed by the recording of 30-minute interaction videos according to the condition, and finalizing again with a 30-minute follow-up interview. The same procedure will be for the Austrian and Mexican samples, and it considers a different trial for each of the interactions. We will be analyzing mother-infant interaction, father-infant interaction, and parents-infant interaction. The control condition, which considers a normal routine, will be during week 1 and week 2, and will begin with the background questionnaire and the BFI. We will take the first measurements. Participants will have to fill in a diary for week 1, another one for week 2, and after week 2, we will take measurements for the second time and record the first video interaction that will be a regular interaction video. Then during weeks 3 and weeks to week 6, the quasi-experimental condition will take place by allocating participants into one of the 3 groups, either singing, playing an instrument, or listening to music. We'll be also encouraging participants to use their self-selected music. And during this condition, participants We'll have to fill in also a diary for week 3, a diary for week 4, followed by measurements one more time, and the recording of the second interaction video, which will include the condition already, following by filling diaries for week 5 and week 6, and taking the last measurements and record the last interaction video, and the trial will finalize with a follow-up interview. The analytical strategy is considering and it's based on quantitative and qualitative approaches, just like the MA project, and it will be very similar, considering that the statistical analysis will examine the relationship between the music use and the affective behavior on family interactions. Therefore, we will compare the difference of individual measures and the behavioral descriptors of the control condition and the 3 condition groups of the quasi-experimental condition, meaning the singing, the listening, or playing. Like in the MA project, the videos will be edited to a 5 seconds time base and separated in 15 seconds interaction episodes. And the behavioral descriptors will include, again, face-to-face interactions and both of the 3-step interactions, and will consider the same scores from 1 to 5. The qualitative analysis will consider one more time the information retrieved from the diaries and the follow-up interview, and it will be based on a thematic coding and IPA. In this case, it will include 3 main topics: motherhood, fatherhood, or parenthood in everyday life, according to interaction analyzed, but also music in everyday life, and we will be adding the topic of cultural and social cues. In this case, also the diaries under the quasi-experimental condition and the follow-up interview will be considering the condition effect and the participants' research experiences. So based on the general results we had from the previous project, we can expect that parents' sense of well-being will be enhanced by using their own selection of music, which might foster the development of parents' meaningful experiences with their infants, and mostly to develop the parents' awareness on the use of self-selected music with their interactions with their infants and as a tool for family bonding. However, this was the general overview of the PhD proposal. However, I would like to share what has been done in order to actually achieve this. Well, thanks to the Global Challenges Research Fund in the UK and the collaboration of the University of Sheffield, the Research Centre Music Mind Machine, and the Faculty of Music of the National University of Mexico and the Department of the Postgraduate Studies of Music, we organized a one-day conference in Mexico City. We brought together academic institutions and nonprofit organizations to discuss the needs, the existing programs, and political involvement on the topic. There were in total of 60 attendees, which agreed the importance of considering music as a tool for helping societies, communities, and the Mexican family, as well as the importance of applying research within the programs for supporting families. Also, as an important step for the study, the project has been accepted as a pilot program from nonprofit organizations, participating in a collective of 422 nonprofit organizations in Mexico. This is called Pact for the Early Childhood. This collective supports research and organizations to innovate their initiatives for helping infants and their families, and function as a representative for governmental and political actions regarding families and their infants. With the support of the Pact, we will be able to validate the measurement scales on Mexican population next year. And therefore, if we know important facts, such as the family being considered as the most important cultural institution for development and improvement of communities and societies, and being a first step for developing resilient and sustainable communities due to the importance of the development of future generations. But it's also a fact that unfortunately, families in modern societies spend together an overall of only 1.2 hours per day, having less opportunity to interact and develop meaningful experiences between the members. That's why, well, it's essential that empirical research gives evidence of the easy access and low-cost tools that can facilitate the development of an emotional bond between family members, as well as fostering their general well-being. And it's necessary that these research projects need to be designed in order to be applied and break the boundaries of academia of being an active element for supporting families and infant development. Also, for fostering their well-being in order to support societies and communities' development. Well, and with this, well, these are the references. And with this, we finish the presentation. And I would like to thank you one more time for your attention, and also to take this opportunity to acknowledge, Dr. Renee Timmers from the University of Sheffield, Dr. Parnkut and the Center of Systematic Music Research for this opportunity and the support. And now, if anyone has any questions, comments, feedback, will be received.
Thank you.